Hi all, it's Jamie version 1 here today to begin the discussion. I thought it was, like, now that the roster's kind of built up, I thought it'd be nice to kind of do a video individually about each roster member and kind of like where I think they're going in the whole industry. I thought I'd start off with a fairly kind of big one and that, if you haven't guessed from the t-shirt behind me, the first one I'm going to talk about is none other than the cleaner, Kenny Omega. Now, this is going to be a discussion just on about what he's done in AEW so far, so I will not be trailing down that long path of New World Japan and all that, although I do suggest you go watch some of the matches from New World Japan, because it's amazing. I definitely would recommend watching them, because they are fantastic, just on a whole new level. But anyways, let's just get started straight into it. Let's just go through the matches. The very first match that we got to see Kenny Omega in the AEW kind of limelight was at Double or Nothing, which was against none other than the champion, Chris Jericho. And during the time, it was kind of interesting because I knew nothing about Kenny Omega really going into this. I knew a lot about Chris Jericho because me and my older brother grew up on like WWE. We'd already known who Chris Jericho was. We watched it live when it was Chris Jericho and Christian versus the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, one of the best tag team ladder matches ever. But it was interesting because I kept getting this vibe, like even just from the quick shots and the quick promos and like the conferences, that he was a big deal. Like, he was a fairly big deal in that. He had a lot of history in that. The stuff that Cody said about him on being the elite, he said, all this stuff about him being one of the best wrestlers ever and all that, and how much he respected him. So I immediately got intrigued, started watching some of his matches going into Double or Nothing, and I was blown away. Some of the matches and that were just absolutely out of this world. His moves were like on a whole new realm. The pace was so much faster than what I was used to. But anyways, we'll go into the match and that, and like straight away he kind of showed us what he could do, showed us his style of technical wrestling, and that showed like how much fast paced it is compared to what we're used to. There weren't many breaks, many chin locks or anything like that. It was just constant hard hits all the way through. Obviously by the end he had lost, otherwise we would have never got the Le Champion, Chris Jericho. And in all fairness, he didn't take the loss that hard. Like, it was kind of one of those ones that he took the loss, kind of dealt with it, but then he had other issues, such as a certain John Moxley trying to plant his head into a stack of chips at the end of the match, which I'll get more into that in a bit, because I want to get through like the matches first, then we'll go on about other stuff. But moving on from there, we then got to see what he's capable of in a tag team match with the Young Bucks, or as they call themselves, the Elite, that's what they are. They are the Elite of AEW. And they were up against, they were kind of up against it going into the match and everything. It was the Lucha Brothers and I've forgotten his name already, the something kid. But yeah, anyways, I will correct that later. But yeah, going into that match, that was a really good match, and that obviously it was kind of like fan service with them coming out with the Street Fighter gimmick and everything, and like Kenny kind of having that usher symbol on the back and all that kind of cool way of going into it. And the match was brilliant. Like I said, it was very strong fan service, and heard like the free Hadoukens, which it got a pop out of me. I was absolutely laughing my head off all the way through that match. And we'll move on from there, because I find that with the tag team matches and that, especially that one in particular, you never really get to see what they're capable of. You see more about how they work together, and the way they work together is brilliant. It isn't their first tag team match. They've done it before, many in the past, and it just works smooth. It was good all round. But we really want to talk about more of his single match, because in his single matches we understand more of his character and all that, and kind of get where they're going with him as an individual. So I'll move straight on to that with Fight for the Fallen, where he was against Shima, another wrestler from like New World Japan that he had clashed with before many a times, and I would suggest going back and watch that, just so you kind of get an idea of how nostalgic this match was, because it really got to remind us of like how far we'd come as wrestling fans. Like, we're now seeing this stuff that you would not have seen like 10 years ago or anything like that, and to get to see it live in this massive stadium and that for a fantastic cause, it was brilliant. And the match itself was just, I would say, good. A lot of other people would criticise it. A lot of people said it kind of went on too long. And in all fairness, I do agree with them. It could have done with like maybe having like a few minutes cut off of it. But I think that's around the time that like, you know, they were just trying to show us what this wrestler can do and trying to like extend their repertoire and let us know like how far they can be pushed to the breaking point. And obviously, you know, it was the first time we'd actually got to see the One Wing Angel fully executed, I believe, as well. Although, no, it was actually executed again in the 6-man tag match actually as well. I actually am sorry for that. But yeah, it was overall a good match. It mostly was there to show that Kenny Omega can take hard hits and everything, and kind of like, you know, just deal with the damage as much as he can dish out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Moving on from that, jumping straight into All Out, where we were building this all up with Jon Moxley from the attack of Double or Nothing. Kenny Omega, you know, he was cutting promos left, right and centre. Unfortunately, they got the bad news about Jon Moxley being injured, which seemed to affect Kenny Omega quite bad. He went into the match and all the announcers were like already kind of hinting at you that he was coming into it distracted, not quite sure. And that was a problem because his opponent was none other than the bastard Pac, which, if we all know, he's brilliant at taking advantage of anyone that's distracted, especially with that, you know, especially with the brutalizer and all stuff like that he can do. The match still was fantastic. There was a few moments where it got a bit too close to the railing with some of the high flying stuff, and it looked quite bad. There's a few moments where I noticed Kenny and Pac were like grabbing their shins after doing some of the high flying stuff, so I was a bit, you know, it got a bit hairy. But the ending was fantastic. You know, yeah, Kenny Omega looked like he was finally going to win it. He was hitting the V trigger and all that. He was setting up for the One Wing Angel, and Pac just immediately reversed it into that bloody submission that for some reason everyone's struggling to get out of. And Kenny Omega made the stupid mistake of trying to just power through it, and what he ended up doing was gassing himself, and eventually he completely passed out. Moving on from that though to the most recent live television show, we kind of went into it assuming we were going to get a 6-man tag match, probably a more depressed Kenny, because watching the Being the Elite, he looked like he was going to a slump. He was making weird videos and that and posting them and everything. We kind of thought it'd say, but it looked like the Young Bucks managed to talk him out of it, get the old Kenny to come back into the limelight and start, you know, kind of getting back to being the cleaner. And like, you know, it's like the Young Bucks said, which is it seemed like he'd lost that killer instinct for a while, and we want, you know, us as fans want to see it come back, because this man is capable of delivering fantastic match, absolutely fantastic matches. Like, you know, you look at some of his, if you go to Kenny Omega's top 10 matches on YouTube, the top 5 will blow your mind, let alone like, you know, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, this guy is so good in the ring and so good at manipulating the ring and manipulating like the movement and the pace of it, that it's just fantastic to watch and easily pleasing. But it looked like they managed to get back, like, you know, some of that passion, some of that old kind of, you know, I'm going to give it my all kind of style and everything. And then sure enough, none other than the person who kind of crapped on his loss against Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, shows up and appears to jump him and beat him up and drag him out back. Now, he got a few blows in himself, but unfortunately eventually got Dirty Deeds, or is it the Death Rider now, through a glass table, and that was kind of the goodbye, and it left to all the drama that then happened in the ring with like the Young Bucks then being outnumbered and that by Chris Jericho and crap, I've already forgotten their name, Santana and Ortiz. And really overall it was just, I don't know why my nose is so itchy. But overall it just seems like they're trying to build up to the fact that Kenny Omega's just, he's trying to get over this depression feeling of these losses and all that, but he just, every time he tries, there's always something getting in the way, whether it's whether it's himself or Jon Moxley. Like, there's no one else, just him and Jon Moxley. This fixation he's got with him, where he just wants this match that hopefully we'll be getting at Full Gear, and I'm kind of interested to see where they go with it, whether they're going to let Kenny Omega win and kind of go on this, like, kind of like, you know, the old Kenny's back and he's going to start getting this win streak, or is he going to lose against Jon Moxley, and are we just going to see Kenny Omega maybe go through this ultimate lose streak and then maybe eventually maybe even do a heel turn? You don't know. He might, you know, they might be aiming the idea that he might go through such a loss streak, a bit like Jack Owens and Helico. He might decide that the only way to win is to, be a heel and, cheat, basically. Do, little dastardly tricks to win no matter what. You might start eventually seeing a Kenny Omega who might turn his back on the Young Bucks and that and start doing whatever it takes to win, even if it means betraying his friends. I kind of hope they don't do that, because I feel like that now that we've stated kind of this nice group of heels in it, with Chris Jericho kind of being the head man, I just feel like that Kenny doesn't really need to be there, and I always find that Kenny plays better as a face rather than a heel. It sounds weird because I always say that people are better as heels than faces, just generally overall in any wrestling industry. But with Kenny, I just feel like he doesn't pull it off as well, because he's got such a baby face on him. Even just his look is quite innocent. He's like this muscly nerd that loves Street Fighter and Final Fantasy games and stuff like that, and he cosplays quite often to the ring. It's just, it wouldn't make any sense for him to then turn heel but keep that look. I guess if they were to dramatically change his look, then maybe they could pull it off, but I just find it better if they keep him as face, keep all the elites as faces for now. I truly think, and maybe just down the line, just maybe consider it somewhere down the line. But I truly think for now, where he's at is good. All I can say is that, so far they're playing this whole idea of he can't get over Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley's his hurdle. He's finally going to get to him at full gear, and I'm just interested to kind of see which route AEW take, because it's something like that can really change the viewership on any TV show, because it's one of those controversial ones of storytelling. Now, Tony Khan and that have already come out and said that they've already got about a year's worth of storytelling done. They've got it all in the script, all set up ready for all their next kind of live shows and pay-per-views and everything. So far what I've seen, they're making some of the right moves and everything. Majority is right moves. It's all been smart decisions, good signings. They haven't got too greedy with the signings and that. It's not just basically back in the day when you just had TNA and all that used to just grab every WWE member they could possibly get their greedy hands on and offer them the moon and everything like that, because it just didn't work. It just, you were basically just watching a rip-off, whereas this is trying to stand out as independent, which is so much better, because we like variety. Us as humans, we like variety and just different things in our life. We don't want to watch the same thing all the time. Some people just prefer something different. And for a while, for me, it was NXT, but I feel like AEW it's going on the right track, and it's doing the right things, and it's more inspiring. The fans are more enthusiastic, and we're going to get behind the show as well. I find that there's just this atmosphere around it, and all the wrestlers seem more willing to commit to the fans and listen to the fans more than you'd get in other promos, and I truly think that's the way it's going. But really, all there is left to say about the one and only Kenny Omega is I kind of hope that they don't do him over in the long run with this whole loss and wins matter, because the problem is he's currently got more losses than wins, so I'm assuming they're going to have to somewhere down the line correct it. But there's the problem where you come to having a guy that's good at wrestling and then a guy that just constantly wins, whereas Kenny Omega, he is a really good wrestler, but I don't want him portrayed as this person who just goes on this massive win streak now after Jon Moxley and just wipes the floor with everyone, because I just don't think that's fun for me as a fan, anyone else as a fan. I would kind of like to see that after he wins Jon Moxley, maybe get some of his fire back, but at the same time I'd like to still see hurdles in his way and kind of help him get over. Maybe do a storyline where after defeating Jon Moxley, he's kind of it's kind of like that classic villain thing where the hero defeats the villain, but then he doesn't know what to do after because the villain is defeated. I kind of would like to see that. It's kind of old school, and because Kenny Omega's kind of got that superhero kind of style to him, I just feel like it would play off him really well. But I guess all I can say is that we'll see, and that's really it. I can't really talk too much more in depth. I'll probably do a follow-up video to like ones like this in the future about roster members once we get a bit more content on the live shows, and like, you know, we kind of get a bit more story development, because it's a bit shaky right now. But I guess that's it for now. Anyways, everyone take care of yourselves. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and describe what you thought as well. And if you can't be good, be careful. If you can't be careful, I can't help you. Bye.